All right, everyone, welcome to the June Indie Homes for All meeting. And we just did our check-in, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Rabbi Aaron Spiegel to just share a little bit about a project that he's working on.
Thanks, Alvin. Um, Several of you mentioned housing and homelessness, and one of our goals is to stop the flow of people entering homelessness uh, by addressing the eviction crisis we have in Indianapolis. If you didn't know, uh, for the longest time, Indianapolis was number 2 in the country in total evictions. That's not per capita, it's total. Uh, Last year, we lost that distinction. We're now probably number 4 or 5, and it's not because evictions have gone down, they've steadily increased. It's because the rest of the country is starting to catch up. Um, it's it's still a crisis, and uh, it's only getting worse. So I can't claim court watching, which is what we're going to talk about. I just sort of inserted myself or ourself into sort of an ad hoc program that was going on, uh, started by 3 Indianapolis churches, Meridian Street United Methodist, Second Presbyterian, and St. Luke's, who right after the pandemic, after having read Evicted by Matthew Desmond, said, we need to do something. And Fran Quigley said, you should start court watching. And they were, what the heck is that? And he said, you just go sit in court. So Fran has 2 of my favorite quotes. The first is, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And the second one is, the scariest thing to a judge is a church lady with a clipboard. And it really is about bringing accountability to eviction court. If you didn't know, in Indianapolis, this is the only place in the state we have 9 different courts, one for each township. Evictions are heard in small claims court. And unfortunately, every judge does what he or she basically wants. One of the judges said to me, we operate in our own fiefdom. Some are really good and they do their best to keep people in their homes for as long as possible. Some do the exact opposite. The average for an eviction case in Indianapolis and Marion County is 3 minutes. And to get that average, some of the judges spend less than a minute on each case. In a minute, somebody goes from having a home to having to be out in 72 hours or 5 days. And we have to do better. The biggest problem are with the institutional hedge fund owned rental properties. The statistics just were updated last week. Indianapolis is now tied for 5th in the country. So we're tied for the 5th largest number of rental properties owned by institutional investors. These are hedge funds. These are not real estate companies. And they, as another judge said, they come into Indiana with evictions as part of the business plan. It's cheaper for them to have attorneys on retainer and evict people than it is to make repairs or to deal with people's issues. So last year, after some searching around to see who in the country is doing court watching more systematically, we discovered it was very few. But there's an organization in Texas called Texas Housers. Houston, Dallas, and Bexar County, where they, during the pandemic, started with this website, and ours looks just like it, where people can sign up for a court docket and then print out forms that they take with them into court to track what's going on. One of the huge problems nationwide about eviction court is we have no data, none. We know things like how many cases are filed, who the landlord and who the tenant is. But in some cases, even in Marion County, we don't know even the result of the case for months because the case remains open as they go through damages. So we don't know anything about the people who show up. We don't know whether they're represented by an attorney. The answer is no, almost never. Gender, race, age, were children present, were there habitability issues? So we now have that information. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you, and this is timely because we just did the public launch of this Tuesday. We've been using it. Sorry, I'm looking. We've been using it since the beginning of the year with our current court watching crew, which is about 35 folks. And now it's going to go availability to the public. We now have 6 congregations who have teams that are doing this. And now we want to invite anyone to court watch. So there's some information about what court watching is about, what to expect. There's some information. We're doing training now once a month. It's a virtual training, the 3rd Wednesday of each month. So next Wednesday will be that. But here's the meat of the site. So move myself so I'm not looking at myself. You'll see I'm already logged in. Anybody can sign up and do this. We don't there's no qualifications, you just show up. So we're pulling data from the Indiana courts website. This is public data that we're now pulling into our site. So anyone can view the dockets and sort by date, county, court, judge, and then if you want to know who's watching what. So we have all 9 townships in Marion County, Hendricks County, Hamilton County, and we just last week added Elkhart and St. Joe's County.
Cool.
They have been doing court watching for a long time. And we want their data, and they said, sure, we're happy to do that. So if I'm going to come in here, let's say I want to court watch next Tuesday, and Center Township always has cases. So we give a little information. So I would just simply click that, sign up to observe a docket. It's going to refresh. You'll see this will show an upcoming now. And there we go.
So I'm sorry, I'm curious. So you watch the court hearing, it's 3 minutes long. Then how can you impact that? I'm not following.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that.
Oh,
So
okay.
two things happen. One, we're tracking data about what happens. For some reason, it's not showing it. So let's open this one. So the watcher is sitting there and going through. Actually, what we usually do is we print these out on paper and answering these questions. Of course, it's not coming up when I want to show it. So what's pre-populated is tenant's name, landlord's name. So we're asking questions like, did the landlord show up? Did they have an attorney? Did the tenant have an attorney? Was the tenant offered services like tenant advocacy program? There we go. Case start time. Was it the usual judge or a visiting judge? Who was in court? Were there children involved in this case? Habitability, how much they owed. This is always really telling to me because the case they'll be a month late Their rent's $1,500, but they owe $3,500. It's all late fees and charges.
Ooh,
Was the tenant evicted? Yes or no? Then were they offered any resources? Rental assistance, attorney, consult, the TAP folks. And then we track the stories. So the court watcher is recording these things as they're sitting there. And again, we usually do this on paper. I'll show you. We print out, because it goes by so fast, it's almost impossible to do on a laptop or on a tablet. So after they get done and they collect all this data, then they're coming back and they're inputting their answers in here. So this is what we end up with. This always makes me happy. So there's about 850 cases worth of data here. So why are we collecting the data? First, everything that we've been saying about evictions in Marion County has been anecdotal. We believe that XYZ. For instance, we know nationally that women of color are the most affected by evictions in the United States. Well, now Indianapolis has data, irrefutable data, that's absolutely true. So we hope to use this now, one, for advocacy work. We're going to take this to the State House in 2025 and say, this is actually what's going on.
good.
We also want to use this to reform the courts. We have real data now about when a case starts and how long it lasts. We thought it was an average of 3 minutes before. We were shooting high. Some cases 2-4 minutes, some is 1 minute. The average is far lower than 3 minutes. So that's what we want to do with this. We want to have real data. And even if we didn't collect the data, I tell the court watchers all the time, because they get upset. It goes by so fast, I'm not able to collect everything that happens. And it doesn't make any difference. We know that their presence in court is changing the way the courts work. My favorite version of that story is one of the really bad judges regularly used to give the minimum in Indiana, that's 72 hours. He's now giving 5 days. It's still not enough, but we know it's because he's got people watching him. Every time that court meets for evictions, there's somebody sitting there watching. So that's the real power of court watching. It's having people present in court. I have seen some of the judges radically change their behavior. And it may sound like no big deal, but they're much nicer to tenants. They're, one of them in particular has gone from a really mean person to explaining proceedings, asking if the tenant would like to talk to the pro bono attorneys. And I know it's because we're sitting there watching. So that's the power. Anyone can court watch. It's really not hard. Literally, you just sit there. And that's court watching, and that's what we're trying to do.
Does your database track the number one or categorize the top issues of why they're being evicted?
It's always the same. It's unpaid rent.
Yeah, okay.
But what we don't know, because we don't get, they're not allowed to say, is why are they behind on their rent? In other states, that's a mandatory question. The judges always ask.
It should be here.
What's
Yeah.
that?
It should be also here.
It should be. Is it because of a health issue? Is it because of a work issue? But not in Indiana. In Indiana, because We have no tenant powers. If your rent's due on the 30th, on the 1st, they can file for an eviction, and they do. And it's, the why is never brought up. It's one of the real problems that it's kind of court watching version 2. We want to start having 2 people in court, one to sit there and collect the data, the other one to go talk to people to get that exact same thing. Why are you here? We had a case recently, and actually this one made the news. A young couple was in eviction court because they were $30 behind. There was an accounting error,
Mhm.
and $30 escalated, and they didn't know. They'd continue to pay the rent, but because they were behind, technically, the landlord filed for an eviction, and by the time they got to court, that $30 in arrears was over $5,000 in fees. And in Indiana,
Oh my God.
that's not negotiable. If they want to get that eviction sealed, which we finally have the ability to do, they have to get that current first. So they were evicted. And it was a great report from Notre Dame Student Policy Network. I love this term. They're calling it the Scarlet E. Once you have an eviction on your record in Indiana, your chance of getting housing in the established housing market are slim to none. It's just not going to happen.
I mean,
So,
on someone's personal record?
oh yeah. It's just like a bad credit thing. And in Indiana, when the landlord pulls your background records, they'll get your credit report, and if you have an eviction, that comes up, and you are immediately out of the pile. Our vacancy rate is so low here, they don't even consider you if you have an eviction. They don't have to. So it's a serious problem. We are creating homelessness. We are also creating an exodus of people leaving Indiana because they can't live here. Nobody will rent to them. And it's just, as I said, I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but it's just getting worse.
Yeah.
So what questions can I answer?
How good is your coverage in terms of watchers? What would you say would be the percentage for Center Township eviction claims?
Center Township were pretty good.
Okay.
As an overall thing, Keith, it's not very good. You know,
Mm.
we're trying to cover
The challenge, it's a lot. It's-
9 townships, Hamilton, Hendricks County. We actually have one woman who goes to Hamilton County every time. The judge there is great. She really enjoys it.
Mhm.
It's hit or miss. The counties where we're well covered, or the townships, is Center, Lawrence, Wayne, and Warren. Pike, it's hit or miss. Franklin, not so much. Now we've had
Hmm.
watchers in every one of the townships. We just need more. We just need more. I went by pretty quickly, but so for instance, Friday on the 14th, is that, yeah, tomorrow, Perry Township has 65 cases. They'll do that in a half a day's docket.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Which is new for Perry Township. Perry Township was one of the lowest, and I can tell you exactly what it is. There is a group of landlords there who decided they don't want to take Section 8 vouchers anymore, and they are evicting people to take those units out of the inventory for Section 8.
Now that doesn't sound like a hedge fund. Is that a hedge fund or not a hedge
No,
fund?
that's a local Well, I don't know. You know, Beth, we'd never know. We don't know. You know, if those of you who are familiar with Lakeside Point, in Nora, the AG's office got involved. I mean, it was just horrendous. It took almost a year to find out who owned that property. And by the way, we're pretty sure after the city said you have to sell it and leave, they bought it back under a different LLC. So it's they're buried in so many levels of property management, LLC, humana, that we just don't know. We just don't know.
Did you say that Hendricks County is pretty well covered or no?
It's not.
Oh, it's not.
Occasionally,
Family Promise of Hendricks County reports out every Friday that they have stopped homelessness and such, but you're needing more people to watch in Hendricks County?
we do, and Family Promise, if I could duplicate them tenfold, we'd do it. The problem with Family Promise is it's only families.
Yeah.
Now, that's a high percentage of cases in Hendricks County are families,
Mhm.
but there are still a fair number of single people
That
who
are
are
being
going through
evicted.
eviction
Yeah,
court in Hendricks County
Sure.
who, and we're not tracking them.
okay.
The other new
I
one
can see if I
is,
can help that.
well, good, please do. The cases that are going downtown to Superior Court. That's trending upwards, particularly for those cases in Lawrence, Washington, and Warren Townships. The three counties, the three best judges, or three townships, where the diversion programs are the strongest, the aid programs are the strongest, and landlords have decided it's worth the extra expense and bother for them to take it to Superior Court. Where we still haven't quite figured out what they think they're gaining by that, because it costs them more, and I find the judges in Superior Court be really accommodating to tenants, so I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I've learned that I'm way too nice to my roommate because he's always late.
No, that's not too nice. That's being human.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's funny.
When you in this hypothetical future where you have enough coverage to start talking to defendants in these cases, have you considered like what you're going to ask and what kind of data is most like important for GMA's work, but also for, you know, long-term study of the issue and hopefully how to lessen
Yeah.
evictions.
First and foremost, we want stories.
Okay.
When we get the stories, they're compelling, heartbreaking,
Yes.
and there's often, I almost said always, but often a tipping point in their story where this could have been avoided. If there was a service that they could have accessed. You just reminded me, there was a fascinating project going on. I think it's in Connecticut. I don't remember. Where there, it isn't universal income, universal minimum income, like it's being experimented here, but it's literally, if you need money, you can come in county clerk's office and we'll write you a check for $250. That's it. You walk in, say, I want $250. And the theory behind it, based on data, is most people end up in eviction court or homeless because of $250 or less. We see it here all the time. A flat tire spirals to evictions. I walk out, I'm going to work, I have a flat tire. I miss a half or a full day's work. I have to pay for the tire repair. The end of the month, I don't have enough to pay the full amount. I pay what I can with a promise I'm gonna make it up. The landlord says, no, you're out. A sick kid. I gotta go to the doctor. I miss a half day's work. Then I have to arrange for childcare. It's often that modest of an amount. So that's what I'd like to know is where could the social service world intervene or make offers? There's a great project in Los Angeles where they're using an algorithm to get to people before they're in trouble. It was a great LA Times article. If you can find it, if you can't, let me know. I'll send it to you. They literally show up at people's apartments in their houses and say, your name came up as somebody that possibly could be evicted and homeless, and we want to help you. And these people are like, what? But it's really using a technology that we have this data to intervene before people are in trouble. We could be doing that here in Indianapolis. We could end chronic homelessness too. That's a whole nother conversation. So that's what I would be looking for.
So you're saying you can go down to the county court, what county building?
This is
$250?
This is in Connecticut. This is in
Oh.
another state. It's an
Oh.
experiment they're trying. No, you can't do that here. They'll look at you like you have 3 heads.
There are a handful of the township trustee offices that they're kind of realizing, oh wow, we're not actually spending the money that the state has allocated to us every year, and they want you gotta spend it in order to get the same amount next time. So there are a handful of the township trustee offices that are doing aid work. It's not really on the lines of housing, but it does get used by a lot of families that are either highly at risk or are currently.
Yeah, don't get me started about the trustees, Keith.
Yeah, I know.
There's a
I know.
small group of us
But I've had
doing a little ad hoc research project about practices among the trustees, and it's just like the judges. There's no consistency. There's 2 really good ones.
Yep.
When it comes to rental assistance, what we find is by the time somebody discovers they could possibly get money from the trustee's office, their application process is so long, they're evicted before they get the answer, and then they won't give them the money. They won't give them the money if it's in arrears. Most of them will only give the money if it's rent coming up. And all but 3 now that we've discovered won't take walk-ins. So you have to make an appointment. And they only have appointments on, Wednesday and Friday from 8 to noon.
Right.
I'm making that up. And if
That's
you're
about right.
lucky
That's
enough
about
to
right.
if you're lucky enough to get an appointment in 3 weeks and it's before you get to court, maybe you'll be able to get some money from them. The dirty little secret about the trustees was they're and this is gossip, but I'm going to say it anyways. They are informally incentivized not to give their money away. It's like he who ends up the year with the most money wins. Just using this money as it was intended to help people in those neighborhoods for whatever they needed. We met with the Center Township trustee last month. She's amazing. She's just said, we're here to help people and we're gonna make it happen. That's not the general sentiment among her colleagues.
Yeah, she's great. She's made some accommodations for some families that I've worked with. Still though, they got the procedures and it's really, really tough to get all those forms together. Or not even forms, just documents, but yeah, they're anyway, that's a side
Well,
thing, but
and,
yeah.
and they'll say, this is the process we have to use. And then we'll go see another trustee who will say, this is the process we have to use, and they're diametrically opposed. So, and then we've called them on it a couple times. It's like, well, we went to that trustee and they're doing it this way. Oh, well, they're wrong. Is there a guidebook for this? No. Why do you do it that way? Because that's the way we've always done it. So it's like court watching. We're trying to interrupt the system. Shed light on the inconsistencies, bring some humanity into this inhumane system, and try to keep people housed. You know, we believe that if we could slow evictions down, we'd be talking much less about affordable housing because people would be staying where they are. They wouldn't have to be looking. So, not to mention that we still don't know the correlation between, data-wise, the correlation between evictions and homelessness. It's all assumptions. I'm hoping at the end of the year, we'll have collected enough data that we can start sussing that out. So who's ready to sign up to be a court watcher?
I'll work on it.
We even have a buddy program where we'll take you out, we'll take you for your first time.
Oh, that's nice. I actually saw you speak at the as part of a panel at the Faith and Action program with Christian Theological Seminary.
Oh, sorry.
No, you did fine. I
Oh,
mean,
good.
it was all about this, and you've answered my question today with regard to, what's needed. And I was remiss in getting in contact with you, so now I know how to do that. And wow, what an advancement you all did with the website, right?
Well, we can
Incredible.
thank CTS Faith in Action because they gave us the money to make it happen.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now
Excellent.
we have other parts of the state, like you saw
Mhm.
South Bend and Elkhart County. It's designed so when other places want to do it, we literally just turn it on. It's not a huge lift, but we do need extra money for that. So, I don't know that we'll ever be statewide, but we certainly want to be in the major metropolitan areas of Indiana. This is this is not an urban problem. This is
Mm.
the entire state. And oh, I forgot to mention the reason we have such a high level of hedge fund investment in Indiana is because we have no laws protecting tenants. Our laws encourage this bad behavior. So watch in January. We've now been through 2 rounds of legislation trying to get rent escrow into Indiana. There's only 6 states in the country that don't have some form of rent withholding or rent escrow, and Indiana is one of them. 44 other states have this provision. Indiana does not.
I was encouraged that bill, the Senate bill, what was it?
277.
Yeah, that it was bipartisan.
It was very bipartisan,
Yeah.
except that
It didn't get a hearing.
the gatekeeper refused to give it a hearing.
Yeah.
So we're coming back again.
Have you trained groups to do the the court watching. I helped with a project that was started by the DSA here in Indianapolis, and it was just basically handing out pamphlets of information on eviction support, and just kind of reminding people of their rights, as limited as they are. Yeah, it was getting the data that you have there was so difficult.
Right.
One of our members created basically a scraping tool script, based on some like patterns of coding that we found, but it was not consistent.
No.
But there was days where we told people they were being evicted, and then they looked in their mailbox and there the papers were.
Wow.
Well, there's one woman we spoke to that we walked up and she was on the phone discussing her eviction because she found out 15 minutes before we walked up. So information's there if you can find it. It's awesome that you guys have figured out how to put that together. So
And
yeah,
I'll tell
maybe-
you, the
Mhm.
training is all about using the website. The training to be a court watcher is you have to be able to sit. That's the training. You know, a lot of people are uncomfortable going to court. So we try to give them enough of the what to expect, the lingo. We tell them straight out, this used to be an issue. The judges of the bailiffs would tell them they can't be there. That's absolutely not true. They don't say that anymore. But the training is to show up and sit there. It's not easy to sit in eviction court.
Is your database track citizen and non-citizen?
No.
Hmm.
We have no way to know that. We're using impressions, you know, so would our data stand up to rigorous scientific standards? No. We're looking at the tenant saying that's a young Black female. She may identify differently. We're not going to ask that information, and nobody else asks it. So the courts don't ask. And we would never use that other than in the aggregate.
Is there any desire or interest to give basically like an exit survey beyond that conversation, beyond that story of being, hey, I was a court watcher for this. This would be very helpful. Please fill that out. Information can be atomized and not connected to you, but please do this. Is there any way that could be systematized?
You know, it came up, and Keith, honestly, I'd love to have the data. But when they're on their way out, that's the last thing they want to do.
Of course.
And instead of that, what we're doing now is making sure they know that they can go to the tenant advocate program people. Because I see this all the time. The judge looks at the order, turns the page. Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez, you have 72 hours to vacate your home. Bailiff, call the next case. And they stand there and go, what just happened? And what's more heartbreaking is they have absolutely no idea what to do next. So if we do anything, we're trying to make sure that they get connected to the people who can at least tell them who to talk to. And by the way, the tenant advocacy program is hanging by a thread. Was funded by ARPA dollars. It's the former Indy Rent program. They are critical to keeping people from dying. I mean, it literally is that. There's a stable of attorneys from Indiana Legal Services that are funded through that program, and the navigators are basically caseworkers who are at every eviction court in all 9 townships. And they're there to help people navigate their way through the aftermath of being evicted. Nobody else is doing this. So, we're encouraging city council to make this a priority. We're trying to get the city to step up. We're actually trying to get private philanthropy to help too. We have to keep this going. So if you have any sway with the muckety mucks, tell them we need the TAP program. Not only do we need it, but we need to expand it. We're gonna keep evicting this many people. Often their only option is find somebody to live with. And when that exhausts, they're in the street. They're living in their car.
Well, Aaron, I just want to say this is incredible work. You may feel discouraged, but I mean, this is a powerful platform y'all put together. And I'm glad you're on our team.
I just get mad.
Yeah, and what I'll do too, after the meeting tonight, I'll make sure we get the recording uploaded so we can shoot it out to the email list again, just in case people missed it and want to see it, how it works and how to sign up.
My closing comment. One of the really big missing in Indianapolis is public awareness. I still meet people well-informed, well-educated, who haven't a clue, not just about evictions and not about homelessness, but housing in general. We are at crisis levels in our city, and it's kind of the city's dirty little secret. If we don't do something about it, we're going to be playing catch up. I saw your comment, Keith. I'll put my email here. And don't mention my name to Jesse because he hears from me all the time.
I had a feeling about that. Yeah, okay.
I just saw
we're kind of friends. We met through DSA, and yeah, I'm trying to. I know he's not on a housing committee, but I mean he's
yes, he is. He is now.
Oh,
It's an ad hoc group of new counselors who
good.
who are hearing me bug them incessantly about making housing a priority in the city council. So, and he's one of them because he knows this is a core issue. It's a core social vulnerability issue. I'll stop now. Sermon over.
Thanks,
Cool,
Aaron.
thank
And
you.
also definitely welcome you back every month just to report out on how the project's going and make sure people know about it too.
Will do.
And also, I know there are some folks interested in the CLT piece. I'm just gonna put a link in the chat that just has an update. It's like a couple months old, but it basically gives the outline of where we're at with the project too. If you want to check it out, check out the link. And we do this meeting every month, again on the second Thursday at 6 p.m. the same Zoom link. So yeah, please, we hope you can join us again. Any last questions or final words before we sign off?
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, y'all. And Aaron, thanks for your great work.
Wait,
We will
thank
see
you,
you
Al.
soon.
Appreciate it.
I
Appreciate
lost
it.
you guys. There you are. Yeah, I enjoyed. Hey, do you have a Alvin? Do you have a second to stay on?
Yeah, let me stop the recording too.